Hi, I'm Jason Hurd and welcome to my new tutorial, how we made Jason Hurd and Todd Terry We Get Down. Todd is a legend in house music, one of the original, producers for me that inspired me to make house music. Well known for his kind of hip house and everything else. We became friends many years ago. And what happened was I was jamming on the Isla Instruments S2400, which is a recreation of the old SP1200, which is what Todd used to use all the time. The track was pretty much there, and I put a reel on Instagram, and he messaged me saying, I need a copy of this. So I spoke to him and said, listen, I need a bit of a vocal for it, spoken vocal. Why don't we get on Zoom, work on the track, and you do a bit of a vocal? So that's what happened. So made a record with one of my peers and somebody who's an amazing producer himself. I've actually made music with him before back in the day. But that was for other people when I was engineering. But this is one between us. I'm very excited about it. It's on the amazing Jackie's Recordings, which is, for me, a really solid label for what I DJ at the moment. Just more chunky, slightly old school feeling house music for the big rooms. And I think this track definitely fits that. Okay, let's have a quick listen to the record.
That's right, y'all. We get down to the sounds, baby. To the sounds of the underground. To the sounds of the underground. Come on.
Okay, so that's the track. I have had to export the parts for this, so the levels aren't quite right. And if you're one of my mentor clients and you can see my master clipping in red, that's why. Okay, so we're using Ableton. I'm generally using this all the time now. It's great for getting ideas together. It syncs up with the S2400 really, really well. And so what I have is I have my own sample pack, and in there I have lots of samples. So I'll spend time separately looking for samples that would work for me in my genre and what I really like, because there's nothing worse than losing your flow by looking for stuff on Splice or through sample packs or anything else. Here's just a few of them. And you can hear that they're all sounds that I would use, not necessarily as all of them as a lead, but when I'm looking for sounds for my own sample pack, I know I'm going to use them in my tracks. So I picked out 5 or 6 of them to work together and then tune them in the sampler so they all work together. This track has a piano, which I used the M1 plugin. I then exported that and put it in the S2400. But virtually all this track was done in the sampler. And if you're trying to get that old school sound, you know, just use your sampler and maybe use a plugin like Decimote or SP950 just to give it that lo-fi sound. But you can achieve something similar in Ableton quite easily. So let's have a look at the track. I'm going to start with the music because that's the most important thing. So, like I said, everything except for the piano here and the string are samples that I got out of my sample pack. The piano is an M1. It is the Piano 16 preset. And the string is just a string from the M1 again. Because I'm trying to have an old school sound, so I try using plugins that make it relatable to the kind of sound that I'm trying to achieve. So let's have a look. This is the piano. So it was imported into the S2400, turned to 12-bit, and the piano was what I started off with. So I put the piano in and I worked everything else to it. So let's have a quick look what we've got on there. Just rolling off a bit of the low end and a bit of a dip at 169. That was probably to make space for something else. And then a boost at 2.5K. I've just rolled off the top. I've then got a limiter. And I would have just used that just for a bit of mixing for loudness. So just controlled the peak volume of that with the limiter without it changing the sound of it. Then got an ozone, giving it a bit of width. It's not doing too much, but it's just kind of making a bit of space in the center, giving it a bit more width. And you know, this is something that I miss when using just the S2400. That's why I bring it back into Ableton, because it's not got certain plugins yet. There is a DSP card coming where you'll be able to do all this, but I struggle to do certain things in there. So what I do with this at this moment in time is just get everything in there, get a bit of a groove going, get a track going, and then bring it back into Ableton, generally in the classic mode, which is 12-bit, and then I put on stuff to mix the track. Got an LFO tool, and what I'm doing there, I'm really side chaining it under 263 hertz, and that's just to make space for the kick, because there's a lot in this track, so I really want the kick to come through. Got an Echo Boy, 1/8 delay. I've then got a Moog filter. Let's have a look at that, or a Moog filter, however you want to look at it. Let's see what that's doing. That isn't doing anything. And then I've got a clipper. And again, the piano is one of the loudest things in the track, so what I'm trying to do here is just reduce the crest factor so we can get loudness out of the track. It's just tickling the odd note there. I could probably push that a little bit more. Okay, there's something else going on here. I've got an Audient ASP 800, and what that is, that gives me 8 extra inputs into my Apollo Twin X, which is here, by ADAT. And what that means is that I can go directly out of this into the audience, and by one cable into my UAD, I get 8 extra inputs. It's brilliant. That's what I got it for, because I needed the extra inputs, because I didn't want to record all these in separately. And anybody who's watched any of my old videos knows that I had the SSL before. So what's so good about this audience is on channel 1 and channel 2, they have 2 saturation modules, HDX and iron, and they're beautiful. I didn't even know they were on the unit, to be quite honest with you. And I just bought this when I made this track, and it adds beautiful saturation. So instead of recording all these in separate as into 1 to 8, I recorded most of them into 1 and 2, and used the iron and the HMX saturation to get this beautiful analog sound. To be quite honest with you, I've probably overcooked it a little bit. All that saturation together is taking a little bit of the edge out of it, but I still like it, and everyone we played the record to loves it. So that is the extra added little bit of analog. How can we do that in plugins? Well, you could probably use plugins like Oven on Plugin Alliance. You've got the tape machines on UAD. You've got Black Box HDX. It's just not the same, but there is a lot of great plugins just for adding saturation and colour to something. You've just got to push it enough. So I definitely ran the piano through that, and I would have tried both the different kinds of saturation to see which one I preferred on that sound in the mix. So that's the piano. Okay, let's go to this chop synth, which is the next one. And again, that's just a synth. I did have it in here as separate hits, but what I had to do is we had to take it out and do a bit of a pitch bend on it, and that's why you got that wah. And we've heavily distorted this. Because I wanted it to cut through the mix. So what have I put on there? I've got a SSL Flex Verb. Got a bit of EQ, just taking out the bottom end, bit of the top. And then I've got a clipper. And that's doing a lot. And what I'm doing there by clipping is I'm chopping off the top for loudness, but I'm also creating a distortion, which a lot of the time I wouldn't like, but in this case I do. So let's turn that on and off. It's just got a bit more fizz on the top end, which I really like. It isn't level matched perfectly, but it's just a bit more aggressive, which is what I wanted for this track to cut through the mix. So that's the chop synth that I've obviously pushed a lot through saturation and then done the clipping on. From there, I've got the wide stab. Just a sample that I've got of Splice, I think, or out of a sample pack. And it was so simple to make this track. I made it in a day because I'd already done all the work getting all my sounds together beforehand. Something I teach in my Mindset for Mixing course. I don't want to kill my flow, so I'll always make sure I've got a load of sounds or presets ready that I really, really like before I start a project. So let's have a look what we've got on that. Top and tail with the EQ. I've got a UAD Lexicon Hall. I like that reverb, it's nice. All the UAD reverbs are really nice. Okay, and then we've got track limit. No. That's just tickling it. Again, I'll just be trying to control the dynamics on that, just so that we can get the track as loud as possible. It probably didn't need that, to be quite honest with you. That's the wide stab. And again, like that's positioned there in the mix. I'm thinking of the position of everything in the mix. Then we've got the electric piano. Actually, that isn't a sample. That came from Keyscape, which is a Spectronics plugin. It was just a basic preset. I just liked it in the mix, and then I just resampled it. Got a disco stab. Pretty straightforward. Bit of low cut. And then the string, which was an M1, that's just got a bit of reverb on it. 1.2 seconds. Quite a lot of mix. And again, just cutting out all the stuff we don't need. That's just in the breaks. And on that, I've just got Pro Q3. Obviously, I've really pushed that in the saturation in the audience. It's got a Valhalla vintage verb, 2.81 seconds, 20%. And that's just in the breaks. All these, as you can see, bits of music. Let's have a listen to them all together. They all go to this music bus. And on this music bus, I'm just taking out anything that was still at the bottom end to make way for the kick. I've got an LFO tool, a very slight setting, but I'll have this on all the buses because I want all my reverbs and all my loops and anything I've got just to all just have a slight bounce to it. It's a bit like using a bus compressor on the master bus. Everything's doing the same, but some things have a different amount of depth, but they've all got the same curve. What that does, it just makes everything feel like it's all kind of glued together like one track, especially when you've got loads of different reverbs. They all just kind of slightly pump a little bit, but you can't hear it pumping, but it makes a difference when you turn them all off at the same time, which I can't do in Ableton. But yeah, that's the music bus, and we've got the LFO tool. We've then got the Moog. So let's have a look what we've got here. And I've just automated a bit of filtering along the track on the music. Now, I might have another filter somewhere else. Sometimes I have layers, so I might have one on the piano, one on the music group, one on the music and drums, one on the pre-master, and then it just because I want different things coming through at different times. I do love the UAD and Moog filter, but I've now fallen more in love. Just reminds me of too many old school records of this. This is what you used to hear a lot on a lot of the like kind of Daft Punk and all that kind of stuff. Let's have a listen to it. That's my new favourite filter. It's by Softtube. You have to link it up because it doesn't link up left and right properly. But that gives a really good sound, because if to have the UAD one, you've got to have the Apollo, but now I use that one a little bit more. So that's the music group. Let's go to another lead next, and let's go to the bass. Okay, so the bass is made up of two items. The SP bass, which again was a sample, and just used the SP in multi-mode and just played the pattern there. And yeah, that was it. I mean, that's how they used to do it back in the day. You know, just little samples and chop them up and play something out of it. So on that bass there, we have Pro Q3, just top and tailing it really, bringing out some of the main character. LFO tool. Now that is side chaining under 135 hertz only, just to make space for the kick. I really wanted the kick to come through on this track. I've got a bit of reverb on this. Some people say never use reverb. I disagree sometimes. Gives it a bit of width, gives it a bit of a warehousey type of feel. I really like it. And then I've got the LFO tool, the same LFO settings as what I've got on the music bus, because I just want that little bounce, but I don't want it to come from what I'm doing to sidechain to the kick, so it's something separate. That's the bass, and then I've got an organ. Let's listen to what that is. It's just an M1 organ hit. Let's see what we've got on that. Top and tail. Bit of a Valhalla plate. Not a long one in particular, 1.9 seconds. 13% on the mix. LFO tool. Again, just doing that side chain, but doing a little bit more on this. It's not on the kick, so it's just going to just generally get the reverb a bit more of that. Then got a limiter. It's just touching it every now and then, just tickling it. Again, that would have just been for a bit of volume if that was sticking out of the mix, and I would have known that by looking at my oscilloscope, which we can go into later on. So that's the bass, and then from there I've got all that in a folder, which is the S2400. What have I got in the effects? Oh, I've just got a snare build. Just sounds like a 909. Yeah, it is. Just a 909 in simpler. Or drum rack. And yeah, that's the music. It's just samples besides the piano, maybe the Rhodes. But it was just messing around in the S2400 that I got all that together. Now, I did have a kick that I had in the S2400. So we'll go to the kick next. All my drums came through the SP and the drums were made in the SP. But I felt like it was too old school. I felt like it needed a bit of something rounder with the kick. So this is the kick. And actually, it's an F9 kick, one of James Wiltshire's. And what I would have done is finish the track and then gone through a load of kicks. And I do that quite regular. So I always put the kick in first, and I'll always mess around with the kick at the end, see which works better with everything in the track. Because at the beginning of the track, it might sound great, but the more you add in, the more you're hiding certain character frequencies of the kick. So I always find it like 90% of the time better to find something which cuts through the mix and really hits you more. And I wanted something a bit rounder. Let's have a listen to that. not really an old school housey kick. It just worked with everything. I like the roundness, I like the bottom end. It just worked with it. And I love the big thump on the bottom end that it really gives it. Whereas the one I had before, I think, didn't have too much bottom end. It was just like an old school kick, but it just didn't cut through the mix and work with the other items as well as what this one did. On the kick, I've got nothing really, just a slight dip, 57, very slight boost, 0.22 at 5.6k. That'll be the tap that I really like out of it. I would probably just put that there because I was just trying to find the frequency. And then I've got a standard clip. So the standard clip will be, again, the kick will be the loudest part of the track generally. So I'll try and reduce the crest factor on that as much as possible by clipping. And what that's done is it's kind of just clipping the top end a little bit. You can hear it slightly, but I've boosted a bit of soft clip saturation. And let's see what that is actually doing to the kick, right? So with it on, minus 7.96. With it off, .24. So we've got like 1.5, even more dB out of the kick by using that clipper. Making tracks really loud aren't super important to me, but I want to make them as loud as I possibly can. So within your track, certain things are going to cut through more. And what I do is I clip the things that are going to be hitting the limiter first. And if something's not going to be hitting the master limiter, I generally don't clip it unless I like to do what I did with the stab before and get that distortion out of it that a clipper produces. The way I work very quickly is I have an oscilloscope on all the groups. And then I will look at this. And you can see here, the kick's in red, the music's in purple, the bass is in yellow, you know, the mid percussion's in brown, and the high percussion's in green. And the kick's the loudest thing in the track by far. And what this means is that I can see all this here, I can clip all this off with the clipper. See the difference? Now that is headroom before it starts hitting the clipper, the limiter on the master bus, meaning that I'll be able to get the track louder. Because as soon as you start hitting the limiter, the sooner it's going to start distorting. So you're better off doing it on the individual items before they get to the limiter. And really we want to be limiting as little as possible, but that's in my Mixing for Loudness course that you can find on Subtone and on Fader Pro. Then we've got the drums. So let's have a look at the drums. Clap. Pro Q3, just taking out the bottom end. Standard clip. Just using that again for gain staging for loudness. The kick's on top of the clap, so don't remember when the kick is in and the clap's in and whatever else is in at the same time, that's going to be the loudest part of the track. So they're going to be the things that are hitting the limiter. As I said, sometimes I would use that for distortion, but I didn't on this case. I've got enough saturation distortion from the S1200, the S2400, and the Audience. Okay, then I've got the claps, and I've got no reverb on that clap. Just wanted something a bit thinner, a bit of a slightly different sound that cut through the mix. Just taking out the low end, boosted it around 3.7K with a parallel saturator, Spectre. Then got a bit of reverb. The reverb I'm using on this is convolution reverb from a pack that I've got. So I've got loads of reverbs here from all the old boxes back in the day. EMT, Cello, Biscatti, Lexicons, Rolands, everything. So I use these quite a lot for my reverbs. And then clipping that. I'm clipping that quite a lot. And what it's doing is taking a bit of the brightness out of it. The more you clip something with an attack, you kind of take away the attack, the transient of it slightly. And I've pushed it there where a lot of the time I wouldn't like that, but I've obviously liked that in the track. Let's have a listen. Yeah, it was a bit bright. In the mix, it was a bit bright. So that's really kind of done two jobs. I've then got a rim. Basic 808 rim. Again, in my S2400, I've got sample packs. So the sample packs I have on my computer, I'll have similar ones on the S2400. So I'll just go to my rim pack and it'll be one of those. That's just an 808. Again, standard clip, doing the same thing. Just keep control of it. I didn't want everything too clean and nice, so sometimes, you know, the clipping, that's what it can do. It can just really just take that kind of the brilliance out of it a little bit. Then got the snare pattern. Now, I'm guessing that's clipped heavily. So again, I've just done that for loudness. There is a bit of distortion being added, but it's not really doing much besides controlling, you know, the peak value of that snare. It might have been coming through the mix a bit too much, and that's why I've done it, as a snare might do. Bit of reverb on there. Again, I've used a Lexicon drums, convolution reverb. And that's the mid drums. And what I do then is I get the mid drums to a bus, and I usually put something on them. But because these drums sound so good already, I've not done anything on this. I've not felt like I needed to do it. I've then got my high drums, which are, again, all come from the S2400. Just sounds like a pitched down 808 closed hat, with a lot of LFO on it. And again, it just sounds nice. I just think, Josh Butler said this to me. He said, I said, what do you use yours for? He said, I just love putting the drums to it and just getting the really nice feeling from them all coming together when you put them back in the track. And it does have a sound which I love, and just making music in it is fantastic. And if you're trying to make old school music, you may as well make it the old school way, like with an MPC or an S2400. So closed hat. That's one there that I have nicked off Richard Earnshaw, one of the best soulful house producers around, one of my favourites anyway. I've just taken the bottom end out of that. And actually, this hasn't come from the S2400. What would have happened was the one that I had probably just didn't come through the mix properly, and I've just replaced it, as I've done with the kick, for something that I've got in my sample packs. I really like that hat. I use it quite a lot. Thanks, Richard. And then I've just got a hi-hat on the offbeat every 4 with quite a big boost at the top end. There's no reverb on that. With a flanger. Just gives it a bit of movement. This is the Arturia one. I like the Arturia plugins, they're really good. And yeah, I try not to use UAD anymore, really. The ones that aren't in the UAD X subscription, which are native, because I do move around a lot, and a lot of times I don't have the Apollo with me, so I want to be able to just work on anything wherever I am without any restrictions. And if I'm on a plane or just kind of in a cafe or something like that, I don't want to have to plug in the Apollo Twin. So that's a flanger, and it's just giving a bit of movement. I do that quite a lot on drums. Then got a ride. Got nothing on that, and a crash. Just one from a sample pack. And that's the high drums. And just a bit of low cut. I like to keep the bottom end tidy. I really want the kick to punch through as much as possible. So then they all go to a bus, and on that bus, again, just a bit of a low cut. Don't need to do that really, but I have. The same LFO I've got on every other bus. Then got a bit of tape. Let's have a listen to that. I really like what that does to the mid-range, and it just kind of gives it a bit of glue together. I really like that. And I've probably EQ'd it, add a bit more top end to that as well. When I'm using these, I don't use presets really. So what I'll do is I'll go through it, I'll drive it, and then I'll just mess around with the different kinds of tape, the calibration, the kind of head, and see what's best for me at that time. And I do that with every plugin really. I generally don't use presets anymore because I wanted to push myself to be able to understand what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And that's the way you do it, just through repetition. So UADX Ampex tape, which for me is one of the best subscriptions around. It's $99 for the year, and you get all them UAD tapes, saturations, compressors, the reverbs are unbelievable. So yes, and then I've got a bit of saturate, which I'm probably doing a bit of clipping. Kind of taking a bit of air out of it, but which I don't necessarily mind with this kind of track. But let's have a listen to what that's doing on the bus. So with it off, minus 7.93. With it on, minus 9.5. So I've saved almost 2 dB of headroom with the drums there, on top of what I've already saved. Again, I'm mixing for loudness. I'm trying to get it as loud as possible, and I'll put something on there. It's gain staging, so each stage will want something, and I will, if I'm trying to get a track as loud as possible, which I was with this, then I will do it. And I've not gone overboard. I'm not like trying to hit -5 LUFS. If I just do these little things, I'm guaranteed to be in the 7s, you know, which is very loud on my master, -7 LUFS. And it's not like I'm making dubstep and I'm trying to get to -3 and really squeezing the hell out of everything, because I don't want to destroy the dynamics. But I like to apply it to try and get the track as loud as possible, and at every stage leading up to the master. So that is Newfangled Saturate, which is part of the Eventide, and that's a clipper saturator. What I've done there is I've gone at 41% between soft and hard clipping to find what was best for me, and I must have preferred the sound of it there. As simple as that. And that's how I think. I don't think a lot of my clients who come in that I mentor say, oh, you know, I've seen this and I've done this and I want to do this because this person said this. No, I put things on and I go, does that make it sound better in the mix with everything else? So that is the track besides the vocal. And it was kind of like that. It wasn't sounding as good as that when I posted a reel just in the S2400. And that's when Todd got in touch with me. And we looked at the arrangement a little bit on Zoom. And I gave him some lyrics that I wanted. And he did something. He sent me a load of vocals. And what I did is I go through all the vocals and I color code them to importance and the things that I really like. So let's have a listen to the vocals here.
We get down, baby.
Let's see what I've got on that. So just got a Pro Q3, a bit of a boost at the top end. It probably needed that to cut through the mix. Then got a bit of compression.
We get down, baby. Down, 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 down. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on.
Yeah, it's just controlling it, and it's giving it a slightly bit more body as well, which I really like. I love that Tube Tech as an all-in-one. Got a Echo Boy, which you can obviously hear. That's on studio tape, quarter dotted, single echo. Nothing major, and that's automated, I think. No, it's not. So I've got that on. It's not like me to not automate that. That's weird. I would normally have sidechained that to... Oh, hang on a second. Yeah, I would have normally have sidechained that to the vocal, but I've not in this case for some reason. Then got another EQ, just giving you that kind of telephone sound.
We get down, baby. We get down, baby.
It's just adding a little bit of something to make it, give it more of that kind of telephone kind of feel. Bit of Valhalla reverb, 3.2 seconds, 14%, taking out the low end, taking off the top, and then get RX spectral denoise. And what that would have done is that just takes out little bits of the room and stuff that I get from Todd's room, just to clean it up a little bit. It's the same again with Isotope RX mouth declick. Just helps with the vocal a little bit. I must have thought it needed it. It's removed quite a little bit. And then a gate, because it must have been quite a noisy vocal, to be honest with you.
We get down, baby. Down, 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 down.
you can't really hear it because I've chopped it. But I obviously thought that it needed it. That's just getting out, little bits of noise of the room in between. Because I would have then bounced the vocal dry for remixes. And that's the vocal. What else have we got? Anything on the bus? Just the LFO tool doing the same thing. So on the pre-master, I would have been, have I automated that? I've automated the level of the brakes. So as you can see here, what that will do is it will just turn the volume down slightly and then bring it up as it kicks in. Just ideally, I would want this to be here, but because of latency, you miss the attack of the kick. So be very careful when you're doing this. You've got to use your ears because you can easily lose the attack. And again, I've just kind of dipped it there and everywhere else. I put a low cut on. I don't know why. I probably just would have A-B'd that and made a decision. I generally don't put low cuts on mixes or kicks or bass a lot of the time. But I did for some reason. That's a pre-master. And then on the master, Pro Q3, not doing anything. I've got the God Particle, and I really like what this does sometimes. It adds harmonics in somewhere and does some kind of voodoo stuff, but I obviously didn't like what it did, but I took it down to 25% and turned it on and off, and it just gave it a bit of glue. Let's listen to that, if I remember correctly.
We get down, baby.
So I just like what it does, how it gives a bit more glue in the upper mids, and I just like what it does. It's hard to explain because it does so many different things. This, it's saturating, I think it's doing some kind of compression, some kind of limiting, and I just mess around with the controls like I do with everything else and see what works best for me. But it definitely sounds better with it. I then sent it to Peem at Jackie's Music. He loved it, and then they got it mastered. And that's the story of how I made this track. It's quite simple for me. Again, the key to this record is finding samples which made me feel that it was an old school house kind of record. The sample choice is everything, and good quality hits. Put them in your sampler, playing in melodies, starting off with the lead, which is the piano, using the M1, and then building around that and getting a certain feeling that I want to play in my DJ sets. Very proud of this record. Very happy to be working with Todd. And yeah, it's my sound. It's the S2400, and it rocks and it punches. And I hope you really, really liked it. You know, you can watch more videos like this at subtonemusicacademy.com. Just DM me, and I can guide you through how to get mentorship or mix down your records. We do it on Zoom like this. So I open up your project, we speak beforehand, and then I mix your track with you on the other end. I'm Jason Hurd. Thank you very much for listening. If you like, go out and buy this record. I'd be very, very grateful.